Hi, welcome to Astrobabble. I'm Donna from Donna Astrology.
And I'm Lynda from Scullywag Astrology.
And today we are going to be talking about the full moon in Aquarius. I will do the moon mansion while you're pulling up the screen. It's the 25th moon mansion. It's called the Lucky Star of Hidden Things. It seems like it's a good one. Ptolemy says it's got the same kind of vibe as Saturn with Mercury. So that is indicative of hard work. Lots of messages as well. It's good for destroying harvests. It's good for strengthening prisons, and it's good for securing buildings. It is also good for expansion, nurture, growth, and fruition are the keywords associated with that mansion.
Interesting that it's of the nature of Mercury and Saturn. And I think that's the first aspect after the full moon. We have Mercury in Virgo and Saturn in Pisces, retrograde, and they're moving towards each other.
And they're opposing each other.
Mm. Yeah, interesting.
So that is very interesting. So
Thank
definitely, I would think that this is definitely going to have that Mercury Saturn flavor.
Yeah. This full moon is ruled by Saturn, but Saturn can't see it. It's in Pisces, whereas the full moon's in Aquarius. So they're side by side. So Saturn can't actually help with this full moon, which is a bit of a bummer. But Mars can't harm it either because it's in Virgo. So while this has the nature of that Saturn Mercury, neither one of those can see the full moon either, but either can Mars. So that's good because Mars is also in Virgo. Jupiter is making a square, is square this full moon. The moon will soon come up. Both the moon and the sun will square Jupiter a little bit later, but at least Jupiter's benefic. So that's something. I also see that we still have Pluto at the bendings of the nodes. So, which means it's to square the nodes. So full moons tend to be about completion, harvest, sometimes endings. And we recommend that you read your ascendant sign horoscope rather than your sun or your moon sign. And we've done a video all about that you can find on the Astrobabble YouTube channel. And we'll put a link to that.
We're going to start off with Aquarius. And if this is happening, this will be happening in your first house, this full moon. And the first house is all about you. So it's things that are coming to fruition with what you've been working on. Chances are something that you did about 6 months ago. This would be a good time to see that that is coming to fruition. If you are working on something that you wanted to do just on yourself, not, as far as like groups or anything else. This is just like a new hairstyle, maybe taking a class, updating your wardrobe, doing things that are on the personal level that are just for you. So this is when you will see that all coming to fruition.
And if you are a Capricorn ascendant, this full moon is happening in your second house. The second house is income, personal finances, and resources. So there may be a high point or a culmination regarding these matters. Maybe you finally get that bonus. Maybe you've been working towards, saving a certain amount of money for something or wanting to purchase a resource. Maybe at this time you receive it or buy it. Some sort of high point, culmination, or ending regarding what supports you, whether that's income, finances, or other types of resources.
Very nice. And if Sagittarius is your rising sign, this is going to be happening in your third house. This is the house of early education, as well as your brothers and sisters, cousins, and extended family. This could also be fruition or things that are coming to fruition in your community, your close community, or short-term travel. So, your car would be involved as well. So this is something that's going to be happening, that's coming to you that you probably were thinking about 6 months ago.
And if you are a Scorpio ascendant, this full moon is happening in your fourth house. The fourth house relates to your parents, your home and living situation. Also things like real estate, heritage, homeland, that sort of thing. So this could be something to do with your parents. It could be that they're coming to some sort of high point or culmination regarding a matter. It could be to do with your home. You could be leaving home. You could be purchasing a home. You could be moving into a better home, which would be the high point. You know, leaving home would be the ending if that was the case. Yeah, so high points, culminations, and endings regarding those matters. It could be somebody that used to live with you is no longer living with you, or any sorts of topics like that.
If you are a Libra rising, this is going to be happening in your fifth house. This is the house of creativity and hobbies and fun activities, including sex. So this will be something that will be coming to fruition around those topics. These are things that you create. It could be your children as well. So something might be coming up that's coming to a completion around this time.
And if you are a Virgo ascendant, this full moon is happening in your sixth house. The sixth house is illness, but it's also our pets up to a certain size. It's service to others and employees or people that you may have some sort of authority over in a work type situation. So this could be somebody you work with, an employee, a subordinate who is leaving. It could be somebody who has in a service-based industry, doctor, nurse, first responder. Maybe they're graduating at an academy, which would be a high point and an ending in a sense. Or it could be something to do with an illness. Maybe you've been battling an illness and maybe now you've completed a regimen or some sort of course of cure. Maybe that's what's involved here.
And you also have that Mars Saturn that's in your first seventh house. So you're extra feeling that because that's Mars is in your first house. And if you're a Leo rising, this is going to be happening in your seventh house. This is the house of the other. This is the house where you have relationships. If you have a committed relationship, that means if you have a commitment with a hairdresser, this is what this is about, a commitment with a dentist, as well as a significant partner. So this will be coming to fruition around those people, events, things that have to do with one other person.
Also romantic and business partners and close friends. And if you are a Cancer ascendant, this full moon is happening in the eighth house. The eighth house is shared finances and resources. It also has to do with mortality. So this could be a high point, ending, or completion or culmination to do with matters like inheritances, insurance, loans, financial agreements. So, yeah, it could be a loan's approved at this time, or you've been going into business with someone, so a financial agreement is reached at this time. Or it could be, you're divorcing or separating from someone and a financial agreement is reached at this time. For whatever reason, shared finances and resources or other people's money is somehow involved, and it will be something to do with a high point, culmination, or completion.
And if you're a Gemini rising, this full moon is going to be happening in your ninth house. The ninth house has a lot to do with legal matters or publishing, higher education as well. These things will be coming into fruition. This is also the esoteric stuff subjects. So yeah, very interesting house to have a full moon on.
And if you are a Taurus ascendant, this full moon is happening in your 10th house. 10th house is career and public reputation. It's what you're known for. So the full moon shines a full light on this house. It's also the house of fame, but also infamy. So if you've been misbehaving, this is the house where you might be caught out. But yeah, this tends to be about high points, culminations, and endings. Maybe you've been working on a really large project and it comes to completion at this time. Maybe you've been working towards something and you're rewarded or recognized at this time, which would be nice. So yeah, high points, culminations, completions. It's also the house of authorities. So this could be bosses or authority in general, but it could be that a boss is leaving. Maybe you've worked for somebody for quite a while and the boss is leaving, or maybe you yourself are leaving. Because it is a career house, it can be endings. So maybe you're moving on.
And if you are Aries rising, this is going to be happening in your 11th house. This is the house of groups and associations, as well as your hopes and dreams. These are things that are going to be coming to fruition around those themes, which is very nice.
And if you are a Pisces ascendant, this full moon is happening in your 12th house. The 12th house is the house of our undoing. So this can be associated with things like addictions, self-defeating habits, just things that aren't necessarily good for you, escapism. It's also places of retreat and confinement. This can be places like hospitals, prisons, or retreats, monasteries, or a spiritual retreat, or just, locking yourself away and working behind the scenes. So there may be a high point, culmination, or ending regarding these matters. Maybe you've been in hospital and now you no longer need to go to hospital. You're released. Or maybe you've been working behind the scenes and soon it will be your turn to, come back out and be more on the world stage. And do you have a crystal for us, Donna?
Most certainly do. I have plenty to choose from. So this is a very Aquarian stone. I consider it. It's called Cavansite. Oh, not really a good. It's the truest blue from the blue ray vibration that the stones offer. We're talking about that little spot right there. It goes for your inner truth and helps you access the Akashic records as well as spiritual channeling. This is hydrous calcium vanadium oxide silicate, to be specific on what that is made out of. It has a Mohs hardness of 3 to 4, so it's a quite soft stone. It has a lot to do with the wind element, as well as and it goes with the third chakra and the fourth chakra. Or the third eye and the third eye and the fifth chakra. So it's fifth and sixth chakra.
Mm-hmm.
So that is called Cavansite, and it is relatively rare. The really good specimens come from Pune, India, and it helps you with clear insight.
Nice.
And I will have a article written about it.
Very good. So the first aspect isn't the Saturn Mercury opposition, but Mars trine Jupiter. Mind you, I don't think there's much time between the two of these. So Mars trine Jupiter, lots of enthusiasm, rush to action.
Very energizing. If you have hard work to do, this is a great thing to do for looking for those long-term goals. This gives you the energy to do that.
Jupiter's in a fixed sign, but that Mars is adaptable as it's in Virgo, so it's a mutable sign, so it can adapt as needed, which is good. Yeah, power of your convictions in some ways, because Jupiter can be quite high-minded. It's yeah, generous and optimistic, but also about things like law and values and judgments. So yeah.
It's a good aspect if you're using it in a positive way. This can also go south, quite quickly with the malefic in the mix. But if it's used in a positive way, it's a great aspect. It can also be a big, huge, with Mars is separation and heat and fire, and Jupiter is expansive. So it could be that. I know I do. I'm not sure. I think Lynda as well would rather see people using these as positive influences.
Well, naturally, yeah. You make me sound like an evil
I
villain.
won't speak for you, but
Yeah,
but
well,
yeah.
Jupiter is in the superior position, which certainly helps. What's Mars in? It's not too bad. It is peregrine, doesn't have any essential dignity of its own. It does have Mercury, which is its ruler, with it, so that helps it somewhat. But yeah, Jupiter's in the superior position. It's earlier in zodiacal order, so that certainly helps matters. I think this Jupiter will certainly keep it on the straight and narrow. That's the hope, anyway. I'm sure it will.
It certainly can. It's certainly it's kind of coaxing it that way, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next aspect.
Yes, Mercury opposition retrograde Saturn, which is interesting because, as Donna was saying, this is kind of the nature of what this, well, not necessarily the nature. The nature of this moon mansion, she was saying, was of Mercury and Saturn, which would be kind of like a combination, like a conjunction, whereas this is the opposition. But interesting that it was so striking in the chart of the full moon. Saturn's retrograde. Mercury is quite strong here. It's exalted and domicile, so it's in a sign that it rules, and it's exalted in that sign as well. And it looks like it's in its own bound. So it's quite strong. So thinking, communications, and all that, very, very strong. That retrograde Saturn can be a little bit depressing, could be quite conservative, but
I like it. It's good for those talks, those need to happen serious talks. It could be restraining. You could feel that Saturn aspect wants you to control yourself and rein it in. And Mercury is in a sign that it loves. It's in domicile here and
mm.
might be very, very chatty.
Well, Virgo does like being right, and so does Saturn. I just think, yeah, maybe really good for fine, detail orientated work, just not overly joyful, perhaps. And with Saturn being retrograde, maybe it's having to go over old ground, like literally re-edit stuff, redo stuff that needs to be done, which sounds very Mercury retrograde, but yeah, for whatever reason,
Saturnian.
yeah, just not overly joyful. But we've got to do those things sometimes, so may as well be done when that's happening.
Life is sometimes made up of serious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next aspect is going to be the Sun squares Jupiter. And this is going to be a bolt of energy. This is going to cause tension. This is one of those aspects where you're asked to do something. From the looks of it, it looks like you're asked to do something big. So big projects, just be when you are deciding of what you're going to do, don't be over exuberant about doing it. You could take on more of a challenge than what you think you can handle.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
would be the only warning with that one.
Yeah. Phrase that comes to my mind is bite off more than you can chew. It's
Mm,
a little bit too overly optimistic, maybe a little bit too generous for your own good too, perhaps, but for whatever reason, it's taking on too much, and you may feel the backlash of that in some way. Either kind of you can't complete the project, or you're absolutely exhausted afterwards, because the sun is our vitality amongst other things. So
it's with the benefic. So this could be, leadership type, grabbing control, especially with that sun in Leo. That's why I'm saying it. It's more of a follow me type of aspect, if you have a good idea.
and then we have retrograde Venus square Uranus, which is interesting. We had this a little while ago before Venus was retrograde. Yeah, this is, discomfort in relationships or regarding Venusian matters such like beauty, art, music, socializing. For whatever reason, there's discomfort there. It's something different, unusual, not to your usual taste, and it's grating. In relationships, this could be just asking you to, one of you may want more excitement, and, a need to spice things up a little bit, perhaps. And while Venus is retrograde, maybe this is a good time to be addressing that. And I can't remember the exact dates, but I believe after Venus does station direct again, they will have, well, they definitely will. They will actually meet up again. So that will be interesting. The will be 3 hits of this particular Venus square Uranus aspect.
Oh, this is very interesting with the Venus square Uranus. You could mix up, your relationship. If there's something new that you wanted to try with your relationship, like maybe you've always gone to camping for a vacation, and all of a sudden, maybe this particular time, you're going to a foreign country, or doing something that is totally different. This could be that type of flavor as well.
Yeah.
It's a retrograde, so you're going to be, back and forth. Do I want to do that? Is this something that I want to do? You're reevaluating your relationship, and if you've always gone camping, and maybe it's a quilting weekend. I don't know. But it is with relationships. It has to do with it should do with relationships. But I, sometimes it does a relationship well to mix things up and try something new. This would be something, and this will be something, obviously you are going to reevaluate it because Venus is in retrograde. So
Yeah. And I mean, because Venus is retrograde and this retrograde, there was a similar one in about the same place of the chart 8 years ago. 8 years ago, there probably wasn't an aspect to Uranus, or if there was, it possibly was like a trine rather than a square. So, that's something too. Maybe this is reminiscent of something from 8 years ago. And, with Venus being retrograde, maybe it's a case of not, it doesn't have to be either or. It could be different for different people and that. But it could be like, we always used to do this and now we don't. Wouldn't it be nice to revisit that? So that could be another option as well.
and those nodes have recently changed signs. The last time they were here was 18 years ago. So in this position, they were in that 9 years ago, but they were reversed.
Yeah.
But 18 years ago is where these nodes, and they've recently, just this last week, have moved into new signs. So
yeah, Aries, Libra.
it's in Aries. Yeah, Aries is that new stuff. So with the North Node in Aries, I'm trying for new stuff. Anyways, the next aspect is Mercury is going to trine Jupiter. This is obviously talk. This is an easy aspect. A trine means that there's nothing to hold you back. There's nothing to it makes the conversation easily flowing. So those mercurial issues, if you were going to get a car, if this has anything to do with a third house, you might something might come easier with the mercurial things. Jupiter is a benefic, so probably good things.
Yeah, Mercury, communications, thinking, learning, and Jupiter does like to expand. And as Donna said, it's a benefic. So yeah, this is big ideas, good, optimistic, enthusiastic communications. This is really good. Yeah. Mercury is in probably one of the best states it can be. It's exalted, it's domicile, it is out from under the beams of the sun. It is close to Mars. So that is something to watch out for. Maybe, there are these big, super exciting ideas. Maybe try to pace that a little bit. That Mercury has had that opposition. Mind you, it's moving pretty quickly at this time. It's starting to slow down though, because Mercury is going to retrograde from the 23rd of August. I did have some dates here, the 3rd. So this is the 9th. Mercury will actually be within its retrograde shadow period at this time. It'll be within that shadow period from the 3rd of August. So it's still in pretty good condition, but with Mercury retrograde, well, with shadow periods in general, sometimes you can kind of get tripped up in the pre or post retrograde shadow. But look, Mercury is pretty good. Yeah, just with that Mars, with Mercury coming up close to that Mars, and Mercury isn't actually going to catch up to Mars because it's slowing down. At this time, it's at 96.5% of its usual speed because it's getting ready to slow down and stop and change direction. But Mars is going to get all the way through Virgo before they catch up. In fact, they won't catch up because Mercury's going to retrograde. But yeah, just maybe great ideas. Just be mindful, anything worth doing is worth doing well, which fits in with that Saturn opposition, I think, and that Mars. Just, that Mars wants to forge ahead, and it's good to have that impulse, that get up and go. But yeah, just make sure everything's as it should be.
And the next aspect is going to be when Venus is conjunct the sun. This is considered when the planet is in the heart of the sun or in the king's throne room or in the king's chambers, the king's ear. This gives in the retrograde aspect, not so much, because when it goes forward, it will actually move ahead with the ideas that it's wanting to get done. But right now it's in a retrograde aspect, and it will be going over the sun. It's typically a nice aspect when that happens. It gives energy in the long term, not right now, because the sun is so hot, it does tend to burn up the planet. It doesn't get harmed here. This is I think, Lynda, you have something that it's you have like no energy, but you do have the king's ear. It's kind of like you have something. How you say it is probably very fitting. But yeah, this is a good time for the sun to be getting the ideas and having that conversation with Venus of what she wants to do for this retrograde, because Venus, whenever Venus is retrograding, it's asking you to reevaluate something. So that might be in your mind.
Yeah, this is the inferior conjunction. Venus and Mercury both have two different conjunctions with the sun. One when they're direct, which is the superior conjunction, and one when they're retrograde, which is called the inferior conjunction. In the heart of the sun, which is good, within 15 degrees of the sun, the planets do get burnt up. They're too close to the sun. Within 8 degrees, they combust. I do like what the medievals say about cazimi, that it's like a sick man on his bed. He's kind of been like, maybe even on death's door,
That's the one.
lying around in bed. And yeah, and now he's turned a corner. So this may be a time where maybe you've been pondering something to do with relationships or art or beauty, whatever Venusian topic is applicable to you. Maybe you kind of have a bit of an aha moment at this time. Maybe you think, that's what I'll do. You might not necessarily be able to put that into action straight away, or even if you can, it may not manifest or have any benefits for you for a while yet. It may take till after the retrograde period, but this may be when you have some sort of illumination on the subject and think, that's what I'll do. I'll do this. And yeah. And then the sun is going to move on. Venus is going to move on. They're actually moving in different directions. And yeah, it's really interesting because usually Venus and Mercury, when they're coming up for their superior conjunction, Venus and Mercury overtake the sun. But when they're retrograde, they're very slow and the sun comes up and overtakes them. So yeah, and this is about halfway through the retrograde cycle, I believe.
Yeah. Does it go back to like 8? I just want to call that number. Yeah, because
no, 12.
Oh, 12, 13.
Yeah, it goes back to 12 Leo. Yeah. I've got it written down here. But Mercury is going to go back to 8 Virgo later. Not this
when it goes retrograde.
Yeah, it doesn't go retrograde till the 23rd. Is it the 23rd? Yeah, 23rd of August to September 14. But no, well, where is Venus? She's at 20. So she started at 28. So she's retrograded back at 8. And she's got another 8 to go. So yeah, more or less smack bang in the
Hey,
middle.
there was that number 8. I knew it was somewhere.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, she's
Just kidding.
yeah, no, she's 16. So must be about 20 days into the retrograde. So when did it start? 22nd July. What's that? 8, 13, 21. Yeah, she's more or less smack bang in the middle of the cycle, the retrograde.
Addressing all those issues.
Mm.
And then we have the Sun square Uranus, and that is disruptive energy. A square is causing you to do something. Uranus is going to make you believe that you have no idea it's coming because it's Uranus is meant to shock. It's meant to awaken you. It's meant to a lot like the stone. It's that I had for this week. It's meant to show you things or get you to see things that are different, revolutionary, shocking even. So, and with it squaring the sun, which is, your vitality has a lot to do with that sun. So this could be a hit to your vitality. So any sicknesses that you might have, get them addressed. This is not the time to go, maybe it'll go away. If it seems possibly to be serious, this is a good time to make sure you're checking in on that.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a spanner in the works at times, particularly with the square aspect. Like Donna said, the sun is our vitality. It's interesting that we've just had that Venus cazimi. So prior to the Sun Venus conjunction, we had Venus square Uranus, and the sun moves on. And, because Venus is going backwards, there's a little bit of difference. Venus is back at 18 degrees Leo at this time. Uranus is at 23. So it takes a while for the sun to come up and square this, but it's interesting. Uranus, I've heard it said too, can often bring freedom. There's that revolutionary aspect, and what do we have revolutions for but to free ourselves of oppressors or some type of oppression? So, maybe this will be somehow involved with those Venusian matters. Maybe they won't. It's certainly happening all in, the house of Leo, because we have both Venus and Sun in Leo at this time. So yeah, whatever's happening with the Leo house, and perhaps the house that has Taurus and Libra in your chart, this may have something to do with it as well. Simply because, we've got that Venus retrograde happening at the same time. And this is just on the back of that, several days afterwards, but on the back of that Venus cazimi. So yeah, maybe some sort of freedom. Maybe, you wanted to do this and the partner's resistant, or vice versa, and maybe a compromise is reached which is still agreeable to both of you, or something that frees you up, or a good compromise. Yeah, maybe. Though when I think of Uranus, I don't think of compromise. So yeah.
Just a little bit of shock.
Yeah, but and these are fixed signs. So fixed signs aren't awfully fond of change. So, some people will deal with it better than others. But yeah, this could be just something, it's the sun. So the sun moves very quickly every day. It could be a day where nothing goes right. And that's the last aspect. Then we have a sneak peek at the new moon in Leo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, with
That Neptune opposite Mars just jumped out.
I
A
was
lot of
noticing,
Mars.
I was noticing the retrograde Venus quite close to that new moon. That's what caught my eye. But yes, we do have that Mars Neptune opposition. I mean, that's the only real opposition. I think of that as being kind of lack of energy.
Or fighting for what you're not sure what you're fighting for.
Though both of those, like the Pisces, Virgo, they're in aversion to Leo where the new moon's happening. So at least they kind of can't impact the new moon, new beginnings and that. But I mean, you know, they're still happening. So interesting. Jupiter will
It'll
be
be a good day to set your intentions.
yeah, Jupiter making a square. Oh, look at that. Uranus is exactly square it. Oh my. Interesting.
Mm.
So that must be just after that Sun square Uranus aspect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, maybe that Sun square Uranus is going to be the kickoff for all that. Yeah. I kind of like that. I kind of like
Interesting
that
coming
tied
up.
in with I know Venus is 5 degrees away from it, but I honestly think that maybe some of this Venus retrograde is going to have people setting new intentions with this new moon in Leo. Not everybody, of course, but it'd be interesting, particularly if you have planets or chart points at, say, 23, 24, 22 degrees of the fixed sign. So that's Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, or
Scorpio
Taurus.
and Taurus.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting.
Very interesting.
So, Donna, what are you doing and where can people find you?
I am still working with energy healing or layouts, work with stones. And I do natal readings, year ahead, electional and horary as well. And you can get a hold of me at donnabastrology.com is my website, and I have my contact information under the contact page. So, Lynda, what are you doing and where can people get a hold of you?
I'm at Scullywag Astrology. That's astrology.scullywag.com. I'm doing natal readings, year ahead readings, and relationship readings. So, yeah. So, thank you for listening. I hope this full moon's a good one for you. I hope the Venus retrograde is being nice to you. And if not, I hope it brings you something constructive. We did do a video on Venus retrograde, and we will put a link to that in here as well. That does include horoscopes for the different ascendant signs. So, yeah. So thank you for your likes, your comments. And if you're listening on podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and rate us. So,
And for relationship readings, this would be a good time to get a reading from Lynda for relationships as you are contemplating change.
yeah,
It'd be a very
actually.
good idea.
Anyway,
All
thank you.
right.
Ciao.
Thank you.